Today's Navy is founded on the principles of a maritime dominance and forward presence as a deterrent to hostilities. This foundation is exemplified through the existence of the modern aircraft carrier. With the ability to launch and recover airplanes, the aircraft carrier is the most mobile, powerful, and effective military weapon in use today. Able to travel at over 35 miles per hour, when there is trouble, the first question is not what we will do, but where is the nearest carrier? Since its commission on November 11, 1989, the USS Abraham Lincoln has been used to enforce the no-fly zone in the Arabian Gulf, evacuate civilians from the Philippines, and has assisted the United Nations on peacekeeping missions all over the world. At over 1,000 feet long and 257 feet wide, this floating city has over 5,500 men and women working and living on the ship while in service. Stretching 6 stories over the flight deck is the island, the command center for the entire ship. Putting the ship in the position to conduct a mission is no easy task. One of the most important jobs on the bridge of the USS Abraham Lincoln is the proper navigation and positioning of the ship, so that it may carry out targeted flight operations.
Hi, my name is Commander Gary Lehman, and I'm the navigator on board USS Abraham Lincoln. My job as navigator is primarily, obviously, the safe navigation of the ship. Ensure that the USS Abraham Lincoln gets where it needs to go to conduct the operations that it needs to do. What we do is we call that water space management. We use the ocean that's available to us to be able to position the ship so that we can fly our aircraft to conduct our missions. And we do that by a number of different means. Primarily, we use the Global Positioning System, which is a series of satellites that will give us a latitude and longitude position. We take that position and we chart it on a paper chart. And from that paper chart, in which is printed all of the different op areas around the world, we can tell where we want to be to do each one of our missions. Some of the bridge equipment that we have to do that is some receivers for the satellites that we receive. We also have several radars, and those radars are used to track surface contacts so that we can avoid them as necessary while we're conducting our operations, and also to plan our voyage so that we have a visual presentation of the track that we want to take. A lot of the other equipment on the bridge deals with the operation and driving of the ship. We have a steering wheel, just like the wheel of a car, that's used to turn and maneuver the ship. We also have a series of throttles where we speed up and slow down the ship. Also on the bridge, we have a large series of television cameras, television sets that are used to give us pictures of some of the various things that are going on board the ship. We have one television set that will take nothing but aircraft data, pictures of aircraft taking off and landing so that we can monitor the flight ops. We have other ones that will give us the status of all of the aircraft in the air and the missions that they're doing. We have another one that will use a computer system that we use to track the ship's position and present that. And we have another one that'll give us a surface picture, takes a radar picture and puts it on a TV so that we can see exactly what the radars are seeing. So those are the equipment that we use on the bridge to conduct the operations and to put Abraham Lincoln where she needs to be to conduct her operations.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Mike Chin, and I'm the officer of the deck today. And basically I stand a 4-hour watch on the bridge, and I'm responsible to the captain for running the ship basically. And I do that with a lot of help. Probably the most exciting thing is what we're doing right now is flight operations. And generally I have 2 other officers that work for me up here on the bridge, and we make sure the ship is basically in a safe position to launch and recover the airplanes. The captain is usually up here during the flight operations, or he can designate someone to be in his place. I have a junior officer of the deck who's basically driving the ship. He's the conning officer. I have a junior officer of the watch who is responsible for any tactical signals or communications or running the radars, and he's responsible to me to make reports for any contacts that are around us and to talk to them if they are going to conflict with our operations. Some of the other things we're responsible for is making sure the ship is where it's supposed to be and when it's supposed to be there, and the navigator basically dictates that to us. My background is I'm a helicopter pilot, and right now I'm doing my disassociated sea tour, where they generally give the officers a more broadened horizon as far as their career goes. So right now I'm basically driving a ship instead of flying helicopters, and it is a lot of fun. I wear the gold ball cap so I can be easily identified on the bridge as far as who the officer of the deck is, and any information that needs to come to me, basically they can easily identify me. Nobody is allowed to come on or off or basically really come on the bridge without asking permission, and a lot of people do come up here to watch, and we're responsible for making sure they're not in the way with the people that are actually standing watch. I also have about 10 enlisted people that are working for me right now, and they're out looking for any contacts on the horizon. They're also the people that are behind the home console driving the ship, and I also have the quartermasters who are maintaining an accurate plot of our position. I also have a bosun mate of the watch who is responsible to me for those enlisted watch standards. So if I have any problem with them, or if their appearance is not up to standards, I can go to the bosun mate and he will replace them and make sure they're coming up here in a clean uniform.
This is elevator 1. Weighs 30 to 35 ton, and this is how we get aircraft from flight deck to the hangar bay, or from the hangar bay to the flight deck.
How many planes can you fit on this elevator?
We can fit any two aircraft on any one of the 4 elevators that we have. The case of the F-14 is we'll put them one facing out, one facing in. This is the flight deck. It's 4.5 acres of airport. We can carry up to 75 aircraft on the flight deck, up to 60 to 65 operationally at any one time. It's approximately 375 feet wide and 1,051 feet long. Now you notice that's a little bit shorter than the overall length of 1,092 feet for the ship, because of the fantail areas that we have where our Liberty launches come in and drop us off and pick us up when we're anchored out in foreign ports. Any questions?
Yeah. How come we don't see any jets right now?
Well, we don't take the aircraft on board until after we get to sea. We'll take, like Commander Armstrong said, the 3,000 air wing personnel. We'll take most of those on board a day or two before we get underway, and then a day or two after we get out to sea, the aircraft and the pilots flying them will come aboard. And the reason why is in case they're needed for an emergency. If they're already on board here and we're setting pierside, we can't launch them so they can be used. Any other questions? Okay, you notice up forward we have 2 catapults. Catapults number 1 on the starboard side, number 2 on port, 3 and 4 on the angled deck. The catapults are C-13s, and they'll put an F-14 fully loaded out, 60,000 pounds, 0 to 160 miles an hour in 2.1 seconds. Yeah, quick. Okay, notice the yellow marked off areas behind each one of the catapults. It's jet blast deflectors. We refer to them as JBD. We shorten everything. Makes it quick and easy to talk. The JBDs is what they're used for, is to deflect the jet blast out of the nozzles of the engines for when they're going to full power right before launch. Because otherwise, if you don't, that blast deflector being down, in catapult number 1, about 30 feet either side, and as far back as the island, no one would be able to walk or do any type of work. We couldn't pre-stage aircraft here ready for the next launch or anything because of the heat and the noise and the thrust of the engines. Jet blast deflectors come up and it deflects the blast up and over. And you'll actually see them when the aircraft's setting at 1 full power. There's another aircraft right behind that jet blast deflector. As soon as that aircraft takes off, they can load him right up. And then all the way astern, from when the aircraft come aboard, is 4 arresting wires. Numbered 1 all the way astern, working up to number 4, closest to the end of the angled flight deck, to stop the aircraft when they come in. Any questions? All right, then we're going to go on to the Combat Direction Center, CDC. Follow me. Now be careful walking over the doorways. Okay, now if you notice, if you look back, forward and aft, it's like a mirror. You're looking in two mirrors, front to back, and it's real easy to get lost. And we have a system called bullseyes to signify where you're at so you can't get lost.
We call these doorways.
Called knee knockers, because if you don't pick your knees up fully, they're going to knock your knees. Right. Here in CDC, which is Combat Direction Center. This is the fighting center of the ship. This is where the battle gets fought from. CDC is not just one space that you're seeing here. It's actually 5 different modularized areas. Right. First one is the surface module, which is behind us over here, and it covers from 32 miles and out. And they cover all surface contacts, helicopters, the S3 tankers, all of that goes out and IDs various surface contacts. That's what they maintain, is from 32 miles from own ship out for the battle group. The air war module, which is over here, is the fighter control module. Just like in the movie Top Gun, the guy that had the little deal sticking out of his ear, and Goose and them goes, got a contact, 500 knot closure, and he goes, Roger, that's your bogey. That's where they do that from. The other module is behind us through the doorway back here, and that's the detection and tracking module, D&T. That's the detection and tracking of all air contacts from own ship out to maximum radar range. The module we're in is the D&D, display and decision. And the reason it's D&D, display and decision, is these 2 large screen displays. The one on your left is basically an overall view of the whole theater. And the theater that we use is like Arabian Gulf. Is the CDC watch officer, which is where you're sitting, would be looking at the whole Arabian Gulf. The TAO, Tactical Action Officer, would be watching just where we're at in the Arabian Gulf. If we're in the southern half, he'd be watching just that portion. And the TAO, his job is for the proper employment of weapons for the safety of own ship. The TAO does not worry about the battle group. That's the battle group commander and the warfare commanders. TAO worries about own ship's weapons employment, and he has the same weapons release authority as the commanding officer, which is whose chair you're sitting in. Now, the other 2 chairs that you have is we're in CDC. Combat Direction Center has its own officer. That's where you're sitting, the CDCO. He's responsible for everything that happens and how it happens in CDC. He reports to the operations officer, whose job it is to run the whole operations department, not just CDC, but all portions of it. And he reports directly to the captain. CDC watch officer. He is the TAO's right-hand man, but sits on his left. Figure that one out. He worries about the large picture, overall picture, meaning if we're in the middle of a battle, TAO's worried about these aircraft coming in that's launching weapons on us. You're watching aircraft coming out of airfields 400 or 500 miles away. It's not something that he needs to worry about because they can't launch on us right now, but he needs to know that they're inbound as soon as he's taking care of this immediate threat. Phone rings, TAO's worrying about missiles being shot at us. I don't think he wants to have to pick up the phone and say yes or no, we should be cleaning something. That's where he takes care of it. You take care of the administrative side for the TAO to keep himself focused on the threat. Are there any other questions? No. No further questions? Why don't we go ahead and get up and we'll go up to the bridge. Get it? We're now entering the bridge area, and I'd like to introduce you to Kilm Pierce. He's going to explain the bridge equipment to us.
Good afternoon. My name is Kilm Pierce. I'm one of the senior quartermasters on board Abraham Lincoln. What a quartermaster does is we do the navigation on board the ship. I've been in the Navy for 16 years. The last 2.5 has been on board the ship. Where you're at right now is also called the bridge, the pilot house. The eyes of the ship is another name for it. The reason it's called the eyes of the ship is that you are 120 feet above sea level right now, above the water line. So you get a good bird's eye view of everything that's going on. Also, as you're looking forward on the ship, you can see 235 yards of our flight deck, which is the distance from here to the very end where the jack is flying.
Where does the captain and navigator sit?
Well, the captain, he sits over here, over on this side of the bridge. That's so he can always have a great view of the jets taking off and landing. When he's up here, which is the majority of the time, he is always monitoring everything that's going on the bridge. He has an officer of the deck that works underneath him that is his direct assistant in controlling the ship. But he's overall responsible at all times, so he likes to be up here as much as he can. So he sits over there where he can see everything. The navigator sits over on that side of the bridge, and that's so he can always see what's going on the chart table, where the people that work for me or work with me and myself do our jobs, and making sure the ship is always safely navigating.
Hi, my name is Lieutenant Raymond Drake with the Fighter Squadron 31 on board the USS Abraham Lincoln. And I'm coming to you from our ready room here and to talk about what it's like to be a fighter pilot in the Navy. First of all, it's a very rewarding job and it's very challenging. On board the ship, we conduct day and night flight operations on and off the carrier. Our squadron employs the F-14, and it's an extremely challenging and fun job. We do all sorts of missions, and when you look out and you see airplanes flying off the deck of the aircraft carrier, they're going out to do a multitude of things. Protect the carrier from enemy planes, we drop bombs, and we deliver precision munitions, as well as doing reconnaissance for the carrier battle group. And for each one of these types of missions, you have to be studied up and proficient at each one. So it never gets dull around the carrier or when you're doing different missions. So a day for us would involve probably one flight, sometimes two, and for each flight we'd start off with a briefing, and that would probably be about 2 to 3 hours prior to our launch, and we'd go ahead and just talk about what we're going to do on each flight, go over the planning that we've done for that, and get ready to go off the carrier and perform. Then actually comes the flight, and that's the best part for the aviators. We go off the boat, perform our mission, and do a good job at that, and then it's time to come back and land on the carrier. And that's probably the most challenging part of being a pilot aboard the aircraft carrier and being a naval aviator. Landing on the boat is difficult. During the daytime it's challenging, and at nighttime it becomes even more of a challenge.
What is it like landing on the aircraft carrier at night especially?
Landing on the carrier at night is scary is one word, challenging is another word. Especially for me, who I fly in the back seat of the F-14. I run all the radar and the weapon systems and things like that. Essentially, a co-pilot can't see quite as much as the guy in the front can, so it can be very scary, especially on dark nights where the flight deck is pitching. It can be pretty scary, but everybody's real focused and everybody's very well trained, so 99.9% of the time it's no problem, but it is always something that gets your heart racing. Your adrenaline definitely gets pumped up.
How many crew members does it take to maintain one plane?
Well, our squadron, we have a little over 200 men and women that fix and maintain these airplanes, and some of those are just in support. Others actually, no kidding, work the jets. So it takes, for our 14 airplanes, it takes over 200 dedicated professionals to fix the airplanes.
1,000 feet, 1.5 nautical miles out, 434 feet. You're down in line. Touch down.